Disney used to do some fantastic, if occasionally questionable and cheesy, educational shorts. When it comes to smoking, the choice is yours. I'm not really sure how I feel. On the one hand, I think it's quite effective. On the other, I feel like they could have chosen a more effective narrative and some better characters, bearing in mind this was shown in schools. And I feel like the characters are largely not very relatable, so the situations aren't exactly relatable, and children, or I guess teenagers, aren't going to be really connecting with it. But basically, this is about a character called Edgar, and he is this cowboy. He is working on this ranch resort, and people around him are smoking. A lot of people are smoking, these different individuals. But he feels very disconnected. He feels like he is not really in with any crowd, and that he doesn't really get spoken to or treated well, not treated badly as such, but he's just kind of in the background. And he suddenly decides that maybe he would look cool or appealing if he started smoking. And his employer smokes. He obviously wants to look up to his employer. His employer is a character called Mrs. Hackwell, and she is brilliant. The animation design for that character is just absolutely fantastic. Slightly scary, and not necessarily somebody you'd want to look like, and that's kind of why one of the reasons that that particular character as a heavy smoker works really well. I wouldn't say she looks cool or elegant or anything. But he decides that this is something he's going to consider, but this other character decides that she needs to try and convince him otherwise. And then it kind of turns into this court case where those who are for smoking argue in favour of it, and those who are against smoking try and tell Edgar that this is absolutely not acceptable. And then it goes into this kind of biology lesson where it's saying all of these really kind of scary things that can happen to your body if you smoke, but obviously it's in animation form, so it's a little bit more, well, almost comedic. Do you know those really old style animations? Well, if you grew up when I did in the 90s, but you'd watch these old school animations from at least the beginning of the 80s, like this one, 1981, where it's almost gimmicky, but it makes you pay attention. So that aspect of it I thought worked really well. And I won't say exactly what Edgar chooses, whether he chooses the right path or the wrong path, but I'll say it's got a satisfying ending, and it's got the right message, and it's educational. As I said though, I don't feel like the actual setting is very relatable to the audience. I believe it was shown elsewhere, not just in schools, but obviously when your primary audience is schools, presumably thousands and thousands of children saw this, or teenagers, then I feel like it needed to be a little bit more relatable for them. But aside from that, it's alright. Edgar is a character, you can definitely see where he is coming from. He starts off as a non-smoker. You can see that he wants to obviously do better in his job. He wants to have friends and socialise with people, and at the moment he's feeling, it's not so much under, I mean, you could argue that he feels like he's under pressure, but it's more like he doesn't really feel good about his self-image, and that he thinks people will look at him more and invite them to join his circles more if he has a cigarette in his hand. So it gets the message across well, but I just think they could have done a completely different narrative that would have been more effective and maybe easier on the eye as well. But I thought it was pretty good. Not my favourite of their educational shorts, but as far as a smoking warning video goes, well, you just need to look at some of the characters and know that you definitely never want to take up smoking.